This is the Dirty Loot Podcast. This week's guest, Dane Morgan.
How long did it take for you, or is it still one of those roles?
It's so I would say that recently there's just more that's going on. So definitely the volume of just life is really hitting me at this point. But I would say it was about a year. I'd say the first year I started off, I think I had one listing and one sale, same person in the first few months, and then went the next 9 months with nothing.
It is that kind of market, isn't it, where you've almost got to start to get to know the people who are going to be into it rather than knowing listings and stuff like that? Partly both?
Well, I think it's partly both. I think there's skills that benefits each side of it. I think that you can be a dual agent. Sometimes you got to recognize what you're good at and play to your strengths first and then continue to grow those skills. So, for example, I do pretty well with people in that sense, and to have buyers we were just flying out the door. Still, at the same time, I think the real key is the relationship. A lot of these people are still the same people you see at Hannaford, still the same people you hang out with at Shaw's, still the same people that you're at the soccer field, and they're out there. So one of the things that I think for me it was always huge was on the integrity of the job itself, right? Hey, at the end of the day, have I done a good job for you, right? Mm-hmm. Because I don't have a customer service team that's going to take the call. It's going to be me.
Yeah.
So how have I done as far as, my service towards you in this game of real estate?
Helping to shape the search for, say, prospective buyers, or helping and assisting with sellers, different things like that.
On both sides. A seller has.
Is it residential or commercial or both?
Mostly residential.
Mostly residential.
If you can, mostly just residential.
Yeah, we'll stick with that.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild market right now because my wife and I have been trying. We have a house. We bought it 8 years ago or so, and in the past 2 or 3 years we've just been looking for houses. We've gotten real serious about it, and then we realized maybe last summer that unless we have a house to move in, we can't. It would have been so crazy to try and sell our house. We could have sold our house and made money, but then the whole idea after that is trying to find a house that's actually suitable, that you're not going to pay $50,000 to $100,000 more than it's worth. I mean, I know that's the market is just absolutely
kind of the market,
right
isn't
now.
it, right now?
Yes.
So I would say that our market is definitely changing. You're seeing more contingencies that are coming on to offers. Contingencies being, if I'll buy this house, if you. At one point, that was not in the market. All right, and that's what you were seeing.
Right. So repairs or ensuring different things of the status of the house.
But not so much.
There was a time when it was sort of.
Well, a contingency is also
sight
is
unseen.
An inspection report.
Yep.
Right. An inspection is a contingency. So there were less contingencies on the offers that were going in, so that created obviously it's going to push and drive price as well.
Oh, sure.
And also opportunity.
Yeah.
If I have the means and I'm coming from out of state with means, meaning I've got cash, right? That cold hard cash. I have the opportunity to wager a deal that you may not be able to compete with if you're an FHA. That's kind of what we saw in our market. That's really what kind of propped and kept our market up during COVID. No question about that.
Did we get a lot of buyers from out of state?
Oh yeah.
I think,
and not just out of state, Portland.
And so Southern Maine too. Really driving up this way.
Oh,
yeah.
Are you mostly in the Androscoggin County area?
So I would say Androscoggin. I spent a ton of time in Augusta too. So but between Androscoggin and Augusta,
that's your area. Well, rightfully say. No, that's what I was thinking, that this market was changing, that the southern line of where people were investing into property or commercial space, both, is now starting to drive up further within the state.
Yeah,
into regions that aren't so touristy, aren't so expensive. Like square footage was at one point much cheaper up here too.
Well, I think again, we're when your top dollar is pushed, right? So hey, we're going 25 over, 35 over. It creates, for those who are here, homegrown.
Yeah.
If you don't have the funds to compete, you can't compete.
No, for sure.
And I just, at the end of the day, when the price is pushed, when you know that, hey, you know what, and also I think, and this is a credit to our buyers, they're also more savvy. Right, this is in 2008 for them. So for them, they're looking at the market themselves. They're seeing the prices themselves. And in many cases, I had buyers who would come from the South just because if it was, let's say it was 300 for a box in Portland, and you could get 300 for a mansion in Lewiston.
Right.
Well, I'm going to take my mansion. You know what I mean? And if all I have to do is drive 30 minutes south.
And that's what it is too. It's not that people aren't necessarily, they're willing to take that drive, make it part of their commute, a daily 5-day week or give or take, where maybe they were less willing
before.
to do that before.
One of my big regrets, one of our most recent regrets, was a house in Litchfield.
You have a lot of regrets like this?
When it comes to real estate.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
real estate. Okay, go ahead. Tell.
Litchfield. I'll tell you a story too.
It was an awesome, like brand new colonial built on like a horse farm in Litchfield, tucked away. The commute would have been 25, 30 minutes. And right now my commute is maybe 5 minutes to my job.
Yeah.
And I was like, and my wife and I were both like, not the worst commute in the world, but you know what? We could probably find something better and closer. And I look back on it now and I'm kicking myself for not getting that house because it was perfect for everything. The price was good. It had everything. It was just this small commute, which really is
How long ago was that?
This was last summer when we were looking.
Last summer.
Yep.
Okay. This has been mostly brought on by how things have changed because of COVID, or were there other factors?
No. We were on a rise.
We were on a rise.
Well before
what was
that.
driving it? I guess I hadn't been paying attention to markets for a while, so I
feel like part of it.
What do you think was driving?
I feel like part of it most recently, I guess since COVID started, you have people in bigger cities who want to get out, get space, get away from others, not have to drive the subway or the bus every day. Do you know what I mean? I think some people thought they could move away from that area and escape that kind of lifestyle. That's part of it. I don't know how big it is, but I'm sure that must have been it because everybody was freaking during that time and like houses were getting sold. So I think COVID had an influence, but probably not as much as maybe we would think.
No?
I think we prior to COVID, we were definitely on a rise. There's no question about that. People were moving out of Portland. Portland was getting oversaturated and the price was going up. So people started moving to Buxton. They started moving into Saco, OB, right? They started saturating all the markets around it. And from that saturation, then came the next push out because now those prices are rising. The competition is fierce. You had a lot of, you had Rock Road that was coming, which I think should be done now, if I'm not mistaken.
It's done. They're having gigs at Rock Row.
Yeah, so Rock Row was coming.
This big concert area in Westbrook?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So I saw a house in Rock Row that in 1 year jumped $100,000. Right, I saw the house the first time it was on the market, and I saw the house the next time it was on the market, and I was like, I can't.
My current house is listed like.
Is it almost?
On Zillow. It's not listed now, but technically the price it goes for on Zillow is nearly twice.
Stop it. Don't do that to me. What are you talking about?
Just say it.
Call your local realtor. We got a few good ones, not just me. Shout out.
But people see that and they're like, I got to get my house out.
Listen, shout out to Jason Beckfar. That's a good guy over there over at Realty One. Man, who else? Jason
Beckfar. I played softball with Jason. I'm pretty sure.
I got to do this. Linda Davis.
Jason Beckfar is one of those Lewiston names like Matt Roy, where there's like a half dozen of them, all your age that you know. So be careful. That's like, ooh, Mike St. Pierre, I know him. There's like 400.
No. This is the one and only Beckfar, but that's okay. Shout out to you, Beckfar. Don't let them talk down to you right now. You losing some weight. I saw you.
Dude,
shout out to you,
I gotta meet Beckfar.
Did he share any of those softball stories? Is he that guy?
He is a softball Beckfar, I believe. Yeah, and his wife. They've been doing
He was phenomenal. I mean, we were only, it's just slow pitch, but
I remember those
he
days.
had a league before that. He was a gamer. Total gamer.
He's the man.
If this is that Jason Beckvar dude, he better deliver if I ever see him play softball.
Hey, listen,
He delivered for a long time when I played with him.
Once again, shout out to you, Beckfar, because I saw you with the weight loss. My guy, let them know what's up. Let them know.
That's awesome.
Brought to you by the Dirty Lou Podcast. Comedy Night at the Dirty Lou Studios. Saturday, October 2nd, 2021. Our guest from Season 1, Episode 2 of the Dirty Lou Podcast, comedian Ben Roberts. The hilarious Mike Gray. The irascible Jake Jacobson. The amusing Sarah Poulin. Funny man Joe Flynn. Life of the party Marcus Cardona. And the ringmaster himself, Mark Turcott. Saturday, October 2nd, 2021, from 7 to 9:30 p.m. at the Dirty Lou Studios at 22 Park Street, Lewiston, Maine. Ticket prices $15 pre-ordered, $20 at the door.
Well, I just want to say, Dane, thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
Dane Morgan.
Appreciate it. My mama gave me that name, and so many people ask me why, and I say she knew what was up. She knew what was up. So, Mom, thank you. Shout out to you.
Tell us about where you're from. Tell us about your family. Tell us about growing up.
So I used to have the story that people believed for the longest while that I was born on Air Jamaica between Jamaica and America, in New York, right? This story, literally, people would go to my mom and say, did this really happen? My mom would say, you really listened to him say that, right? So, I was born in Brooklyn, New York. East Flatbush, Jamaican immigrants. My grandparents came here from Jamaica, very proud. One was a teacher, one was a seamstress and a nurse. They came with 2 kids, my uncle and aunt, who are the first 2. Very religious in the sense of we were Christian and Seventh-day Adventist coming up. Deacon, I think my grandfather was an elder in the church. He taught in the New York public schools. We got this story in our family that so I think my mom was moving back in the house with me as I would come along, and she had to write a letter to mom, don't kill me for this. She had to write a letter to my grandfather, and he sent the letter back with red marks on it. All right, all right. And I was like, what? I said, what? I always feel like it's folklore, but it's real. It's real. So. That's just kind of, coming up was Brooklyn.
Were your parents first generation?
So my mother would have been first generation American, yes.
She would have been.
Yeah.
Is that so? Do you still have relatives or family in Jamaica, or have a lot moved?
So our close knit, we had a smaller family size.
Yeah.
So yes, there are a few relatives. We have one in Canada, a few that are in Jamaica, but for the most part, it's been the core that it's almost like I always call it like we're the plank owners of our name. I also have my parents' name, so I have my mom's maiden name, which for me it's so important, especially since it's my grandfather, it's my uncle, it's me, it's it, right? So now it's my 2 sons who share the same name. In the process of keeping that name strong, that always matters, knowing the shoes I have to fill. I'm
not sure. I just don't know the history of the name Dane. And you said mom got it right.
So mom was a scholar, and she went to, I believe she was at Brooklyn College at this point, and she was a Shakespearean. She was a fan of Shakespeare. So Dane actually comes from Shakespeare, and just where she was. My parents, my sister's name is Jazz after jazz music.
Yep.
My brother's Miles after Miles Davis. My son is Quincy after Quincy Jones. All right, so
very musically driven too. Then,
yep.
Not all of them, but most of these names. And you DJ as well.
I do.
Nice. You've been doing that for a while. What kind of music too? What kind of DJing?
So I can't be put in a box.
No, sure. I don't want to stereotype you.
No. I used to. You play.
Oh, right. It's hard to.
You play different things. I like country music, which is weird. At least to people who hear me play country music, I think it's pretty cool. But I like country music. There was a time frame when I was DJing that I was trying to do like hip hop and country all at the same time, and
how'd the crowd react?
So it depends on where I was. If I was in Hollowell, it was like
They love it.
They loved it there.
Hollowell loves anything.
If I was in Lewiston, they
No,
wasn't
it
like
doesn't.
that. No.
How do people out at Sabatis, like mixers, how do they like that?
So I've DJ'd a few times at mixers. We did what was that? There was a fad that they had these headphones for a while. Silent discos is what they were called.
Whoa, really? Sounds kind of cool.
It's I don't know.
It was a novelty.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the whole culture of being able to go out is so you can spend time and
Interact with
fellowship, right?
others.
So it just had this weird like.
You're just like kind of jamming. You're just always like, yeah. So what?
Yeah, I think one of probably the best parts was when people really get into it, and they forget that they have headphones on. They start singing at the top of their lungs. That's one of the best parts of the whole thing. But they don't know. They forget. Otherwise, I think it's a waste. I don't want to say it's a waste. I hate to say it like that. Shout out to whatever circles it works for, but at the same time, it's
a pretty cool concept, but I can see where it's not for everybody too.
Yeah, it's just not. You go out to enjoy yourself, right? You go out to mingle. You go out to spend time, celebrating whatever you're celebrating, right? Whether it's celebrating just I'm alive, all right, that's tough. That's like being at home. Just stay at home, right? So
if you, if you're in real estate and then you got DJing going on, it sounds like you're probably busy like every day of the week.
Yes, time frames.
Because DJing, I think, is like weekends, right?
Yes.
Real estate, I think, is probably
24/7.
24/7, 7
if
days
you
a
let
week,
it be.
really.
If you let it be.
Yeah.
That's the key. It's if you let it be and how you handle setting a schedule. Sometimes that can get a little wonky. Sometimes you have to, I've had some pretty good leadership over time. One of the things I've always heard was, hey, you have to prioritize, and if it's not in your calendar, it doesn't exist. If it is in your calendar, then it's important that you, if it's going to be there, that you switch it, right? If you have to switch it, it goes in a different space. It's somewhere else. There's some benefits to having a schedule.
Yeah, no, I would think so. You've got to leave it structured enough where you're not allowing things to distract from your life as well.
Yep.
So Dane, the family was in New York, if we can get back to that.
Yeah.
And so how'd you find yourself? What'd you end up doing, and how'd you find yourself in the Lewiston,
That's
Auburn
the
area?
golden question.
Ooh.
Sure.
So I was in the Navy. I spent 4 years in
Straight out of high school?
Well, I took a small detour to try to study theology down in Alabama, and it was short-lived. It definitely was short-lived.
How come?
Actually, very
Was religion very important to you at the time?
Yeah, religion is important, but again, how do you? Everyone has a calling and a way in which they can benefit society. If that's not your calling, then you got to make sure that you know which one is, so you spend the time actually on that.
Right.
And that way wasn't it for me.
Well, what was it about that experience that kept it away? And was it this awakening moment where this isn't the path on how I want to make that connection?
Well, I think
when
that
you went down there?
I think authenticity is I mean that's paramount. That's big.
Yep.
And I think passion is also big. If it's not my passion, I can't.
Not going to choose it.
You got to be able to believe in what you're doing. It's not that I don't believe in religion. It's just that to walk that lifestyle, you got to be. I mean, I always crack the joke like if me and the pastor at the bar, there's a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I see my pastor at the bar, boy, we got issues. So, I want to be able to be authentic to that and recognize that maybe that's not the space that I can be of most benefit. But for those that can, I mean, I've had amazing pastors across time. So I know that there's definitely a teaching. I know that there's definitely, a privilege to be around those that can do that. I also, I know that it's.
But not becoming a pastor, it doesn't necessarily mean you don't want to be a teacher.
No.
Or implement that type of life either.
No.
Right.
No.
Gotcha. It's a role. It's a different kind of role. Yeah, I hear you. I didn't mean to take away from it.
No, you're fine.
So you went out to San Diego for 4 years.
Yeah,
Through the military, through the Navy?
Yeah, I mean, I was stationed out of San Diego. We were in a few other places, and definitely across the time. We did other training, stuff like that. My last duty station was BIW, specifically, but Brunswick, BIW is kind of the same, interchangeable. Our ship was a pre-com that was out of here. That's how I got down here. And from there, it was kind of like just starting to see the rest of Maine. Again, 2010 and 11 were interesting. That was an interesting time in Lewiston, but also an interesting time in Maine. I think we were just going through the first influx of immigration.
Immigrants to the area,
and specifically coming from Somalia and Sudan, right? And they were down in Portland. We were going through that. I remember being in Old Port, seeing some stuff. I was like, wow, those are real fights. That looks like Brooklyn. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That was, back then. And again, it was, you recognize, as I've been here now, I can now, and having done the history behind it, I can see where there was fear between the two. I definitely can empathize, with that fear as well. But sometimes it takes, you can't have our mayor talking about gotta go back, right? You can't be doing certain things like that if you want to perpetuate inclusion and growth, right? Yeah. If you want to perpetuate people, especially as a leader, right? As a leader of all things, that can't be the space that you operate in. People are going to feel comfortable.
Yeah, that was a really difficult time, difficult period for Maine, a growing period as well, not just in Portland, up here in Lewiston as well. I feel like we were, for the first time, people who had a vast majority of people who lived in Maine don't have a lot of interracial connections, contact, friends. It was just the way things were. And it's not for fault of having been a lifelong Mainer. I don't feel like it was the fault of like people not wanting to. It was sort of, it just culturally speaking, very, very.
Why do you say that?
Well, because listen, we're predominantly a very rural area, and then it's always been a highly Christian background.
Oh, no. Remember, it was Protestant right before that. It was
right
Protestant
before that, possibly. But was that right before that? Are we talking 100 years ago?
No,
or are we talking?
So we would say, what was it? I'd say when the French Canadians, the influx of French Canadians through our mining,
mostly turn of the century industrial period. Yeah.
All right. So that I always, after doing the history on, I've been like, wow. So you have basically the I always call it the main version of the black codes, but that might be a little too extra there. And I'll be fair if someone feels bad about that. I'll pull that back a little bit. But I also think that if we know our history, we see it, right? Maine is the epitome of class, right? It just is, right? In class, yes, you can't have the conversation of class without having race as a part of it, but for once.
When you say class, are you talking economic class?
Yeah, like serfdom, like we're based on European principles, because who's coming up to Maine? In the beginning,
nobody was.
The coldest place in the Union.
People came down to Maine from an even colder place.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, because we were British first, right? Yeah. So we were definitely British first. Then you had, because it was Protestant. So the thought process around the Protestant culture clashed with the Catholic culture that the French Canadians brought with them, and that's where you got like the bringing of the church. That's where you got the French. You couldn't speak French in schools, for quite some time. That ended in the 50s. It's 2020. We're only 70 years away from the 50s. So when I look at the culture, I realize that like Maine has had that feel. And so the reason why I love being here in Lewiston and being here now is, at one point you couldn't speak French in school. Now we got dialects. Now we got, we have an onus to
the multilingual. We're vast array.
Yeah,
sure.
We're better than most other places.
For a lot of Franco-American people, like it was probably our parents' generation, who kind of had to carry the fire and carry on the French language speaking and more of that culture. And it's because of the reasons you said. It was discouraged for some reason, and really they didn't carry on that stuff as much. They weren't speaking the language as much. From
persecuted is what it was. But shout out to my Franco-Americans that are here, because there's St. Mary's is a byproduct of that. Mm-hmm. What's the school that's here? not St. Dom's, but actually, yeah, St.
Oh,
Dom's.
well, yeah, right. There were some there were a good number of private Catholic schools, private schools here.
St. Peter's, St. Joseph's.
Yeah, St. Peter's, St. Joe's as well. St. Dom's is a product of that as well.
The Colosseum,
Holy
you name
Family.
it. So there's been a lot of growth, and that comes from, the thought process that we would still push forward regardless. Because, boy, I can't imagine not being able to speak French in school. Man, I'd be ready. Okay. It's just an understanding of the culture and the clash, and then as you watch the same thing happen years later.
Well, I mean, I guess at the same time, there was the American Indians were treated in a similar sense, if not worse. They were put into not like they were given reservations, and they were put in schools where they couldn't teach their Indian culture, and they were kind of a victim of our government in that sense too, where they had to drop all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess, there really was just a lot of suppression going on there for a long time. When Carrie and I were younger, you were primarily either Irish or French if you lived in this area. My family came from the Midwest, and so we're all Scandinavian, but when we got here, it was mostly Irish and French.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, you could probably count the number of African American people on your hand, or people of color. You could count the ones that you knew on
for real.
one hand.
For real.
Yep.
Yeah, I grew up in that.
And then I would say probably, maybe around the year 2000, that was the true beginning of the immigration influx, and then it only snowballed from there, which, in my opinion, has been fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's brought so much to the area, and culture, language, clothing, food, you name it. It's just kind of changed Lewiston, in my opinion, for the better.
Let me ask this question. I've thought about this sometime. What would Lewiston be without the influx of immigration, and at every level? You know what I mean? The at every level.
We'd be stagnantly monocultural, for one. I believe that.
Stagnant is a good word for it, because I feel like we were already there. We were right at that point where it was a stagnant, safe kind of town to live in, I guess. But had a staleness to it. Just something new needed to come. And then the immigrants came and then really changed things.
I don't know if we knew that it was something that was going to be beneficial at the time in the sense of it too. And it's not fair for me to say that I can't excuse the racism or the racial inequalities that were sort of somewhat maybe blindly a part of this culture before. I didn't see it that way. I guess I had no way of comparing it or understanding. And like Duke said, there were maybe handfuls of people of different ethnic backgrounds before here. It wasn't like we had large populations and large neighborhoods to kind of impact, to make this change or to make it an issue. Of, okay, so how do we really feel about race here? What are Mainers racist or are they not? We had to answer that question rather quick.
I think a lot of people
and I don't think we knew the answer.
We didn't know.
I really don't think we knew.
You didn't know enough people of color to really know if you were or not. You'd like to think you're not.
I think there might have been some that came from, in looking at it, I think there might have been this racist view that, I don't want to say it was every person, every means, but from the north that came south a little bit more. There are things that I've heard within either family or other members. We can try and get Israel. We'll warm up and we'll get there.
Okay.
But it's only been as years have passed and I'm like, holy shit, that wasn't really the right thing for me to have heard or been. I can't say I was taught that because I wasn't, but there's sort of by saying it, you're encouraging it too.
So again, it's the understanding, and so this is how a conversation of the fight and the fight that I've had to listen to for the last year or so between institutionalized racism and the understanding of it, right, and the understanding of privilege is that. I talked with a gentleman when I was walking through Pettingill, and what he said to me was, he was like, "Man, listen," and it's funny because, listen, I won't say I don't know how to defend myself, but if you're afraid of me, when you get to know me, that's
wrong person to be afraid of.
It just so people have these comfortable conversations. They feel comfortable being able to share themselves, and I try to create that space that allows you to feel that way because it's about education first.
Yeah,
first
it's more beneficial for everyone.
Yeah. So gentleman said, yeah, this whole thing about like privilege, like, man, like I feel like I've worked for everything I got, right? And I said, that's a great point because you're right? You have worked, and so there's this difference between, so if I'm in downtown, I've been saying this forever, right? If I'm in downtown, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Asian, I'm you name it, right? You name it, any diversity, I have the same issue. Doesn't matter, I'm poor. Right, so I have the same issue regardless. Right, I have the same less resources. I still have the same wait times for everything. I still have the same struggles that come through because I'm in downtown, and that's just the way it is. Right, and so if we start to really look at it from that thought process, we get to a space where we start to understand that the two I guess sources that are clashing are going to be I'm black and I have inequity, and I'm poor and I have inequity which knows no color. Right, and so my new statement has always been poor is the new black. Right, poor is the new black. It used to, right, poor is the new black. Right, yes, you still have more restrictions as a black man, but that does not negate the poor guy that has the same issue in the same area as you do. That really is what people should be spending time on. Right.
Do you think we've been our better interest is to look at it that way in the overall? Have we been diverted by the true?
No, I think
because it's more of a social economical issue than it is a race issue.
Well, I think
regardless of if you're in Maine or any other spot, or that doesn't necessarily.
No, that doesn't
hold, does it?
There's no.
There are areas
I'm just talking about Maine, right?
Okay,
not
sure.
Outside of Maine. Outside of Maine
let's
is
stay here.
Totally different in that sense. I think that I think that Black Lives Matter does bring the subject into focus, right? And so otherwise we wouldn't talk about it, right? We would just sweep it. We've been sweeping it for the last 20, 30, we've been sweeping it forever in Lewiston, okay?
Yeah, wow.
All right, so what it did was it sparked a conversation that needed to be had, and by asking those questions, you actually realize everyone's having the same issue. So how about we get it fixed for everyone all in the same process, right? So people who are against Black Lives Matter are not realizing they're just against what really are you against? What are you against? Because you got the same issue. Hey, if I go to jail and you go to jail and you can't make bail and I can't make bail, we got the same problem. Come on, man. Come on. Let's we got to spend time focusing on all aspects. And again, there are inequities, right? It's still better to be poor than it is to be black. No question about that. At the same time, let's make sure that we're seeing the picture for what it is all the way. All right, Martin Luther King, when he got assassinated, started talking about economics. All right, well, all right, we started picking up on all those aspects, right? That the economics is what we need to change, right? The creating the equity in our programs is what allows it to do that. It creates good old competition, right? The way it's supposed to be, and one of the things that I listened to also in the last few days, and it took me a while to pick it up, was there have been opportunities that. So I know a ton of our African descent folks that are coming from Africa, immigrants that are coming in with PhDs and masters and doctorates, and they're just coming in that way.
Yeah, these are very educated people,
and we keep trying to treat them like they're the issue. And B, like they're not someone to be respected and revered in that sense, right? The same way we revere someone who gets their master's and doctorate here, right? Same thought process, right? So why do we treat them like they don't know what they're talking about instead of getting to know our community as it is, right? I'm a new Mainer, essentially. Yeah. Right? I wasn't here, I came here, right? So I'm a new Mainer. How do we make our people feel comfortable being able to advocate for themselves? How do we make them feel like it's okay? Like, okay, I can feel comfortable, like when they come and shake my hand.
Being able to speak for themselves?
Yes, because
with representation? Or is it just more of the grassroots speak for yourself?
Well, here's the thing. I believe that people have, when people are given the tools to be successful and they feel, all right, so as a coach, we, with our kids when we were coaching, before we'd always have these few meetings with all the coaches, we talk. And one of the things we always talked about was they don't care about our X's and O's until they know that we care about them, right? They don't care if I want you to go and set that screen over there and come off it. No, they care about that when they know you care about them, right? Yeah. And they will run through a wall if they know you care about them, and it's authentic. You can't get around it, right? A kid will only feel his truth if you are really that, right? It's either that or you're not around. That's true. And so that was always the mentality for us all the way through, right? So if I take that same mentality and I put it on larger pieces, larger life, right? Now I'm seeing it from a standpoint of how do I make Abo feel comfortable to come talk to me? How do I make, Howard feel? How do I make my son, who's a very perceptive young man, and like when he meets people, he's like, who's that? All right. Okay. So how do I make him feel comfortable, in those spaces enough to be himself, and in himself feel comfortable enough to now give forth, right? Can't play from defense all the time. Got to be able to.
I think something had to happen first. Is there had to be, like when we're talking about people of color, the numbers have to they had to have been more saturated, because like what Carrie and I said when we were younger, literally you could count all the people of color in Lewiston, but now the numbers are there, and really, and the way I see it is, we work. People who never used to work with people of color are working with them now. Yeah. And I think now this is the time for those struggles to be understood, and like those issues to be understood, because right now you have these normal people who really, they know someone of color. They work with someone of color now, and like that dialogue is open. They can talk about these things, things can be said, understanding can be had. But I think just right now, I think especially for Lewiston, like the Black Lives Matters movement came at like a really great time, because there's so many Black lives here, and we all know them now, and like now there's more at stake. I think 25 years ago, the only Black people that people cared about were the ones on TV on their favorite shows.
Well, this what I'm saying is not just Black.
Yes, but I'm using that simply because of Black Lives Matter. People of color, definitely, because there's more of that now.
No. But I mean marginalized. I don't mean just people of color. I mean if you're poor. Right? If you're poor, you had the same issue 20 years ago. 25 years ago, if you were poor and you were in downtown Lewiston, you had the same issue that you have today.
Well, the poverty levels in Lewiston have Lewiston's always had a large poverty-stricken area. Am I right? I mean, like...
Yeah, I can't think of a time. I mean, then again, I wasn't really looking at it from the overview. I spent some time here and time away. The thing I've also noticed is you're always going to have those cities and always going to have pockets of poverty, or areas that have been left behind.
But an entire city that's
but are we an entire city that's been left behind? And I'll say it this way. Well, and I'm not saying it for the greater good of it all, but there are still areas that have been highly unaffected by any kind of poverty. Oh, man. And part of it is because they choose not to look it in the eye.
Listen, you said we weren't going to get too hot today.
Oh, well, no, did I say we were not going to get? Well, I'm not trying to get hot. I'm not trying to get hot.
No.
We're not talking about anything I planned, nor you and Duke, I'm sure. But this isn't a bad conversation to be had, though, either.
Yeah, no. Listen,
I don't want to get anybody saying what they don't want to.
No. If you can't take the heat, you can't be here. All right. Well,
this is one of those things that's worth talking about too.
Honestly. Yes, I think there are. Oh boy.
Only go as far as you want to go, my friend.
I think that oh man, I've had some really great conversations, and one thing that stuck out to me is the concept of charity versus equity. All right, and a lot of times we treat the process as charity. Oh, let's help them. Oh, that kind of thing. Whereas we have to remember that we've got to make an equitable system that allows for everyone to compete at the same level. And then at that point, it's just how much do you want it, right? Same thing we teach our kids in sports. How much do you want it? You want that starting spot? Well, you got to go work. You got to go take those jump shots, right? You got to spend the time put into practice.
Yep.
That needs to be the space that we focus on, but that comes from the education, All right. One of the things that I realized in real estate, had this guy, it's like my number one story because it changed my mind about education and how the onus for it. So sold a house on West Bates, sold it, put it on the market December 11th, and we closed on December 18th.
Wow.
So put it on the market, first showing we saw it. My man put the offer in. Okay.
7 days later.
Cash, right? Guy from his son was coming to Bates. He wanted to figure out some stuff there. That was kind of part of it. I think he also recognized he was seeing the trends, and at that point we were still level, but we hadn't hit that.
Wasn't that peak yet.
No.
Good for him.
And so at the closing table, he said,
"Is it, Duke?"
I hope it all worked.
The farm.
Out.
Okay.
Well, so I get what you're saying. Again,
It's all about timing sometimes.
We had,
isn't it?
We also. You're gonna make me hit so many things. Dude. All right, so he at 110,000. When he closed, he said, "Yes, I lost money." And I was like, "Man, what are you talking about? You lost money? What did we do?" In my head, I'm thinking something super bad. Like, what? And on the way out, I said, "Sir, you said you lost money. I'm just trying to understand what you meant." And he said, "You don't know." He said, "Man, he's like, next year I'm going to take a loss on the building, right?" And I balanced my checkbook. All right, blown my mind, right? First time I never understood that process, right? Took a look at it and I was like, whoa, right? Whoa. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, I know if I didn't know that,
it wouldn't have made any sense.
Who else in downtown Lewiston knows that, right? Who else in the trees knows that? Who else over here knows if I'm just hearing that, right? And that was when I realized that it's about education, right? It's about making sure the education is accessible, and not only accessible, it's pushed, right? It is the forefront of how we move forward. You kept slaves as slaves by not allowing them to read, right? How do we get our people the information they need so that they, again, with information, we always say that perfect practice makes perfect, but that's not true, right? But practice makes perfect, or whatever version of that we want to agree with. At the same time, practice creates experience. And the more you experience something is the more you feel comfortable in the space of being there. Yeah. Right? If I shoot 100 jumpers or I shoot 1,000 jumpers, right, I'm going to feel comfortable knowing that my release is the way it is because now it's
automatic.
Because I've been doing it. So how do we ensure that our community feels comfortable by getting them education and experience that moves them forward? And also, how do we stop treating it like it's charity? It's part of it being a give out, and I know that's going to spark a bunch of people. But how do we stop being? How do we keep it from being charity and allowing it to become a space that's equity, so everyone has the same playing field to start? Once you have the same playing field, then you got to work, right? Like all the realtors come to me and say, "Hey, what's it like to be in the real estate business?" I say, "Come on, cool." And I tell them at the end of the day, like, how much money you want to make? I ask that question. They tell me, "Hey, look, I'm all for you coming in the game. Just know you have to work."
Yep.
That's going to be what separates everybody. So I think there's a lot. Oh man, there's a lot.
Well, then why don't we kind of, on that note of having to work, having to get out there and do things, what brought you to the whole running for city council thing?
So last year I got in my estimation, a few things happened. Much of what I've been saying for the last 5 years. All right, so like I get those Facebook like 3 years ago, 5 years ago things, and I'm like, you said that 5 years ago. They only heard you last year. Oh yeah, like consistently see it. A lot of my views were the same, right? One of my views was that so when President Trump was running and he was on his way up, so he was the candidate and he was running, one of my thoughts at the time was beware of the okie doke, right? Like our media just keeps putting him on, and our conversation fully was Donald Trump, right? It just kept going. So in terms of an election, either we focused on who we wanted, or we keep focusing on the
villain.
And by default, he was allowed in, right? He was allowed in for us, regardless of how you feel about that. That still resonates, in terms of how that worked. So just different views that
we haven't changed that much as a people, as a percentage of groupings of people in the last, say, 10 years. I mean, we are still greatly. I remember I was thinking about this a little while back. When's the last time we had a blowout presidential election? And it might have been, if you want to say, it was probably when Barack Obama, and it wasn't like a blowout on the numbers, but it was for a popular electoral college. It became a blowout. But when you look at populist numbers, if you want to dive into it a little bit, we're still always playing within a 5 to 10, it feels like 5 to 10 or 10 to 20 million, give or take, a balance that continues to fluctuate like the ocean waves. You know what I mean? We're constantly in motion, movement. Yeah. So regardless of how far away we are from that moment when a lot of people were disenchanted and thinking, how could we have put the orange man into this position, you know? And but there's almost a counter population that will say the same about whoever that next candidate is that they don't agree with or don't feel too. So I think we sometimes get hung up on the partisanship of it as well, and we think that they're going to be reflective of our ideals as individuals, as a people. And we've let them steal that from us as a people. And I think the importance of having, say, city councilors or people in the locale of where we live is being able to have that one-on-one, having that opportunity to have a good representation. And give ideas that are their ideas as well, and share it with the populace. Do you feel? What are your thoughts on that?
I think we work on both sides of the aisle. I think regardless,
have to.
I think our onus is to collaboration has always been key. It's how if I'm the smartest person when I walk in the room, I've got issues, right? I really have issues, and the reason being is because I want that perspective that comes from your experience, mine. The combination of what that looks like. You're going to know things that I'm not going to know. Another favorite story of mine
and
is
vice
Bill
versa.
Gates.
Yeah. Should be. As long as we're willing to listen.
Yeah. As long as we're willing to hear. I mean, it's
willing to listen and willing to educate ourselves.
Yeah.
About
and also willing to be able to put yourself out there as well. Right. You got to be able to express yourself in those views. And this comes back to advocacy, right? Being able to feel comfortable expressing yourself in those views. It's on the same page. We got to be on the same page.
Live from the Dirty Lou.
The fact is, I'm just not the man I want to be. Yeah, the fact is, the world's a whole lot bigger than it ever seemed. The fact is, it comes in waves, I'm a slave, can't seem to find a safe place. Someone dragged me away and back to reality. Salary ain't major, but it ought to be. I'm trying to make it through another day. I mean, honestly, what the fuck's the issue here? I just gotta make it through another year. I just can't fake it to the man in the mirror. I don't hate what I do, but I do what I hate for. See here, if only I could see clear. It's like a coin toss for the blame play. Sorry if I came late, you just don't see me the same. So is it just me? You can always tell what I'm saying. A phone call away, please don't dwell on the pain. Yeah, message received, but we're not spelling the same. So why you messing with me? I carry on the rain. Am I the best I can be? There's no telling today. Yeah, anxiety is something I'ma take to the grave. It's never too late to change and embrace that pain. It's never too late to get a second try. There's no due date to save. Right, replace your name, man. It's not like we get a second life. It's never too late to change and embrace that pain. It's never too late to get a second try. There's no due date to save. Right, replace your name, man. It's not like we get a second life. One day at a time with a slow roll. I don't wanna console, don't wanna feel comfortable. It wasn't my choice to have to live it, but I've come way too far to try to give in now. So hold steady, my queen, that dream ain't far. So many fish in the sea, but I can tell you apart. Yeah, low self-esteem, but you still shine in the dark. You deserve to feel free and have peace in your heart. But a wrong worst enemy sharing the same image. In my mind is my enemy sharing the same prison. Here I go again, define my own mission. Still doing shit every day. I wish that I didn't, but that's the slow change that we're working towards. Grind so hard, I forget what I've been working for. I've been out of sorts and back on a different course of track. Well, some laugh and some still support my back. I guess the fact is I ain't perfect and won't be. And maybe it's my fault that somebody else broke me. Some days I fall, so I guess right to a dope beat. Writing so late that I won't sleep. Self-care on the right, and so I smoke on my left. We haven't spoken since you left, but I still hope for the best. I still plot for the end, like I'm lost to pretend. Just pray this crazy world lets me see you again. It's never too late to change and embrace that pain. It's never too late to get a second try. There's no due date to save. I'll replace your name, man. It's not like we get a second life. It's never too late to change and embrace that pain. It's never too late to get a second try. There's no due date to save. I'll replace your name, man. It's not like we get a second life.
So on a city council level, you would be representing Ward 3.
Ward 1.
Ward 1. I'm sorry, my bad. I don't know. Am I in Ward 3 here? Is that why I was thinking that? It could be. Very well. You're going to have a constituency. We're going to look to you for answers. Any idea what those questions might be? What would be most concerning for people that you feel are in your ward and beyond that through the whole city?
I think that that depends on which piece of the ward. Our ward is very, very diverse. It does come from different parts of our class. If you're in the more or less, if you're in the Pettingill area, or so, your needs and your requests and the things you're looking at are going to be different from those who are behind CMMC.
The Sunnyside Park area.
Sunnyside Park. Some people call it that and some people don't. That's one of the things I've been trying to get a hold on.
What else do they call it? Because I lived down there 30 years, and I can only really...
Oh, so then that
CMMC area, I guess,
that's the one part of Lewiston that's partly residential and partly industrial.
Well, years ago, it was where there were a bunch of like beer warehouses or something. What was the beer company that was down there on?
I don't remember.
I keep wanting to say Narragansett.
Well,
but
I wanted to too.
Maybe it is Narragansett.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always been those big warehouses. It's been like half industrial park, half residential.
And it became dilapidated. There was the stop of putting finances and money back into that area.
Yeah.
From a business point of view, maybe residential, it became more unit driven, more apartment driven.
I mean,
they haven't started on that those units, right?
No, not that I'm aware of.
So they're just sitting on the land too.
What do you think, like when you made that, you kind of state like the people at the Pettingill Park area had different needs than the people in the Sunnyside Park area. What have you picked up on there? What do you think? Because I grew up in Sunnyside area, but I live in Pettingill Park area or Pettingill School area. So, I mean, I'm there with you.
I think one of my favorite questions as I was walking through was, if there's one thing you change about your neighborhood, what would you do? And varying answers, I would say in Pettingill, the answer was almost unanimously, I love my neighborhood. There's nothing wrong here, right? And that was sentiment I heard from everyone I asked that question.
What about in the Sunnyside Park area?
Difference. Met a guy who had the biggest shed I'd ever seen, and this thing was not painted either. So it was like he looked like he had just put it up not too long ago. And I was like, man, that's a nice shed. Looks like a two-story shed. And I said, why'd you get a garage? And that set him off. Boy, he went in. City won't allow me to do that. I talked to him about, doing the application process, and it makes sense. If your city hall is both judge, jury, and executioner in this process. All right, so they're saying no based on code, and then they turn around and say no when you apply. All right, I don't think it's always that they're going to say no, but I think what you have in our area, in Sunnyside area, is you have a person that doesn't have the education to push that forward. So when I asked him, how come you don't go to City Hall and sign it? He said, well, that's time and money. All right, it's just time and money. Okay. But if he knew that the process was as simple as sign a form and he's educated enough to go fix his house, nice house on the block, right? Right. So I know he has the ability to be able to go in and sign the paperwork. Again, does he feel comfortable in his in advocating for himself to go to City Hall, to go sign those paperwork, to go through the process, to ensure that, you know, does he feel comfortable that he's going to get an okay for that, right? Is he comfortable in the process, right? And that is the bigger difference is you can tell that they don't feel comfortable with the representation that they've had, right? And they don't feel like it's actually a possibility to be able to move forward. So it's almost like you have no hope. Like you're like, I just got to take what I get.
Creating change.
Yeah,
or to help better yourself. Or in the land that you live on.
Well, you know, you put a garage on a house, you know, your value just went up, right? Yeah. So, what does that do for you? And what does having money do for you, right? So, in real estate, my team is the Morgan team, where real estate's a gateway. Gateway for what, right? Gateway for success. All right, I bought my first home. My parents just bought their first home. Shout out to them in New York, right? So,
nice.
For them, they've been trying to do that forever, right? What does the feeling of being able to realize that dream that you've had for so long, for them? And so that's major, you know. But now you get home and now you can't do it, can't do what you want with it. All right, and right across the street from you, they can do whatever they want. All right, anything they want. So that there's a ton of, you know, just not feeling comfortable with, again, their representation, their field.
How the system works too.
Yes.
Is that partly it?
Again, education. If you don't know how the system works, you can't.
That's true.
You can't tackle a system you don't know how to.
It's only been recently in the last, say, 5 years where I've ventured in myself with dealing with the city of Lewiston, whether it was from the planning board or code enforcement or different things like that. To be honest, never had any kind of interaction like that, nor did I understand the steps. And so it's sort of like that first time you create a recipe, whether it's for like a salsa or a tomato sauce or different types of sauce. That first time, dude, that takes way too long. And there's so many mistakes. I can think that it's very frustrating and actually intimidating for people to try and take something on when they don't know the first thing about it or the first step to be taken.
Yep.
Daunting. And so the easier path is not to do anything.
Yeah, and then we don't get anywhere.
And it doesn't go anywhere. So that connection, maybe that education or bringing in the opportunity for people to know how their city works and steps, would that be something that you think could be greatly benefit?
I think it could be of great benefit. I also would say that I believe that we can always grow. All right. I also, in certain aspects of this, you realize, you know, what it means to those that are younger to see you be able to, you know. So being a young black coach in Lewiston, Auburn. All right, the amount of kids.
What do you coach?
Coach basketball. That's my love. Love doing it forever. Can't get enough of it, honestly. It's been always like a safe haven in many ways, growing up. So in that space, but so our kids are going to, you know, they're going to feel comfortable with I would say one of the things that I've always been super, you know, like humbled by is some of the things that I've been able to accomplish or be a part of, and then to watch people come to me, you know, as a real estate agent. There's 5 real estate agents in the state that are black, the whole state. Right, one in Bangor, he kills it. Myself, there's 3 in Portland. I think no, I'm sorry, there are 6 because there's 2 in Lewiston.
Yes.
Right? Shout out to you, Antoine, as well. Mr. Real Estate, New England. And so there is, when people started realizing that I was doing real estate, they go, "Well, how can I do that?" Okay. Oh, all right. You know, you got up and you thought, what could you be? And you came to me and asked me about what it would take to be a real estate agent. That feels that feels super good, and also the ability to help you try that process feels, amazing for me. So it's being able to realize and see it, visualize it for yourself, but not only visualize it, you're like, yo, I could do that. You know what I mean?
You talked about the importance of something authentically being a desire within you, that it has to be more so like grassroots oriented. And when you're talking about a collective group of people,
Yep.
But as an individual, it has to come from within.
Yep.
It has to have that. You have to have that drive. How do we? You've mentioned it before. It comes to an education, doesn't it? Like the individual education, the learning.
So yes, that I usually refer to as drive. But yes, it does come to an individual
That exists outside the classroom as well as inside the classroom.
Well, yeah. So I mean, as all things, right? You got to do some of your own studying for yourself, right? So some of that has to be, I'm going to step forward. I'm going to actually have the initiative to move forward. A player that would ask me to stay after practice is a player I'm going to stay with after practice. But I'm not going to force you to stay after practice, right? And actually, to be fair, if you don't want to practice, you don't even got to come to the team. You're good. We can do this. We can do this. And I've done that plenty of times. It's about what you want to do within this process. Let's do it. So that's there. But what I'm saying is the giving the individual the opportunity to know it's there. Mm-hmm. All right. So one summer at Tree Street, we piloted the Ambassador Music. Ambassador Music is my DJ handle, but the Ambassador Music Music Academy. Right. And what it was is that we taught kids. We took 10 kids and they learned how to DJ and also how to produce music. All right. And we had two guys here. One guy who's been one of the best producers I've seen that's local. Right. He knows his stuff around Pro Tools, you name it. Mm-hmm. And then we had DJ Benarzo, who is he's from Uganda and he's been DJing. I think he just left Kentucky a few days ago. But he does conventions. He's all over the world. He's played everywhere. And so they came in and taught the class for the summer.
Oh wow!
Right?
What a treat! What a treat!
We got some help from Webbs for getting the controllers, getting the equipment, and it was, we went through that pilot. That was an awesome pilot. But now you have kids that are gonna say, well, how did I learn how to DJ? Right? How do I learn how to produce music now? Okay, now I got shown the basics. Now it's me, my passion. How am I going to move forward with that? And again, those are, for me, those are my way of being able to give back the things I love, right? Yep. The things that have kept me safe, the things that have kept me focused. Coaching was always a give back. Actually, coaching started because I was home with my son. I was home with Quincy. And Quincy just born in 2015, started working at Verizon Wireless over on Center Street. And I spent his next 9 months home with him, right? And just, like, we had to figure it out, just the way it was working. Oh, sure, yeah, right. Just the way it was working.
Oh, I know.
So I spent his 9 months with him. At the time, I was working, like, overnights at Bonnie Staffing over at, they make the Pinnacle, whatever's over there.
The bottling company?
Yeah.
I forget what it is.
Federal Distributors?
No.
It's the one out on Lisbon Street near Exit 80. It used to be Pinnacle, and I can't remember
like
what it is now. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
So I was over there overnights working there, and then I get home just in time for him to be like, Daddy, I'm up. All right, cool. I was like sleeping with him and all kinds of stuff. And so one of the things, after a while, you get kind of, okay, like you can only talk to your kid that doesn't talk back to you. But for so long, you're like, okay, I need some friends. I feel like we're going a little start crazy. And I decided to go coach at Auburn Rec. All right, cool. Was coaching there, and I think I coached 3 practices at the Boys and Girls Club before the director of the Boys and Girls Club came down and said, do you want to be a part of the B-Grade program? What was that? B-Grade program was a bunch of kids, primarily Lewiston Auburn kids, but 90% of those kids were Lewiston High School kids who were dangerously in danger of failing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fully going to fail, no question about it. Because of that, they were also athletes. They were some gifted athletes, but they didn't. They were missing the discipline piece of it. They were just missing the discipline piece of it. That's it. That's really it, right? And missing the I feel like people care about me piece. And in my opinion, I also felt like they had come up, and because they had been problems before or considered problems by our teachers.
Yep.
We only have one school, one middle school, one high school.
Yeah, right. No other options, really.
No matter what, right? Teachers talk, right? They all got their own, right? It's a teacher circle, right? So imagine the conversations that are had where by the time these kids get to high school, they feel like no one's giving them a chance whatsoever, right? Like whatsoever, because every teacher's, and partially their fault, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you feel like it's partly the system or is it partly the family dynamic as well? I mean, I always tend to think that there's a lot of different factors that weigh in on that.
Well,
sure.
In order to be an athlete, you have to maintain a certain grade level.
Yep.
Yeah.
And realistically, in order to maintain a certain grade level, you have to have a certain kind of support system. You have to have a certain level of self-motivation. A lot of stuff. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the world, but you have to have certain things to meet that grade to stay on the team.
So very much so. But in the event that you are missing certain pieces of it,
makes it
then
way harder.
No, it's on the village to start to put together ways around that.
That's
right?
true.
So if that's your teachers paying attention, right, and saying, okay, instead of treating, I think it also we've also come a long way in how we treat trauma in school, for sure. I would say that 500% over, because we have come quite a way with how we treat trauma in school. Before it was treated like you were just a bad kid. Right now, newsflash: in third grade, my principal wanted to kick me out of elementary school. All right, and it was because of my assistant principal in Brooklyn, my mother who was at school all the time, right, and the guidance counselors that was there. It was the collective unit, right, that kept us. And my mom is educated. Right, my mom was the first Black valedictorian at a nursing school across the board, top nurse in New York, doing public health now. Her thought process was she wasn't going to leave me hanging, and she wasn't going to let a system either tell her how that process was, right? Mm-hmm. And so because of that, and because she was educated enough to be in the space with me, that is why I'm here today. There's no other reason for that, right? There's none, right? So now how do we help the kid that doesn't have that, right? How do we help the disadvantaged, the marginalized kid that doesn't have that support system? Is we help that. Again, it wasn't just my mom. It was the assistant principal.
No, there were people, there were pieces, there were people within the system that were at least alertly enough and dedicated. Yeah, dedicated maybe empathetic enough and compassionate enough. Because is that what it comes down to as well?
But again, they understood the kids that they were working with, right? My principal, remember, the piece here is my principal kept trying to get me kicked out of school. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I had the head principal trying to get me kicked out, and the assistant principal being the buffer. Stop, no, we can't do that, right? And this is like, you can't make this up, right? That's the kind of kid I grew up. I grew up with what I would consider to be, I think I grew up with anger. My dad wasn't around. My real father wasn't around, and so I grew up with some trauma around the fact that you get to school and you have father-son day, stuff like that, and I didn't have that. So there was a lot of trauma around that, and so I was always a bright kid. Never an issue with that. School was we could do school, Yeah, so yep. It was about how I responded to the teachers, how I responded in those moments. The transition from going to private school to public school.
Was it a little bit more anger and resentment towards situations? Is that what you kind of come up with?
I think you're younger, right? You don't I think the beauty of coaching those middle schoolers is, boy, they going through it. Going through it. So
middle school was when I really first got my ass kicked by a coach.
Yeah.
With basketball.
Yep.
That was the sport where I learned how to run.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean when I say run. You run your butt off for sports. Like for me, it began in middle school.
Yeah.
But to get back to these kids who don't have these resources, I mean, I had a mom and a dad, I had brothers and sisters, I have friends, roots in the area, and some people really just don't have those things. And for me, it wasn't always easy to get that grade. And when you don't have these people who have your back, you don't have these resources, you find yourself kind of being left behind. Yep. And it really stinks. Like the system is designed that way. It's kind of a flaw in the system where if you don't have these certain resources, you're not going to make the grade, and you're not going to, you could be the next Jordan, or Kobe Bryant or whatever, but you didn't have those people who had your back and helped you get there. I mean, it just makes it harder. you know, and then you kind of have to reach down. It's like what Carrie was saying. You have to reach down deep, and you have to be the one to kind of drive yourself out of there. But you, it sounds like you were around these kids who really kind of were left behind, and well, you did your best to kind of help them out.
No, we graduated 18. So we graduated 18 of our youth. Ange, miss. Woo! That was man. I remember crying the day they graduated. Just just knowing the amount of times we've given them rides, the amount of times they needed food, the amount of times that they had hope, the amount of issues we ran, just trying to get them to be a part of the process with us and believe. We would go down to Portland and we play games in Portland against their whole rec program, and then it was getting their emotions in check, right? Like how and when, one bad decision from a mental thought process can kill a whole game. Microcosm of life, right? Mm-hmm. One bad decision in life can kill a whole, so how do we keep ourselves in a space where we can operate even when we're in the fire, right? That's, to be fair, that's their whole lives, right? They're refugees. That's their whole lives. All they know is being in the fire, right? And all they know is being in the fire without nobody else around. And then when they get to a place, they know the resentment that they feel around them because, we're doing stuff like throwing pigs in the mosque, the most sacred place, right? Like, it's just, it's recognizing our own history and choosing to do something better about it by actually investing in, not anything that's just actually investing in who they are, actually investing in what that means. Those are like my little bros. Anj and Kamis still play on my adult men's league team now. Cool. They're my guys. Right, little racehorses. They keep going, man. They moving these days. They're in shape, But there's 18 of them, and so the premise of the program was, much like school, you still had responsibilities. So you still had a study hall process. You had to give back to the program of the Boys and Girls Club. So that came through study hall, that came through enrichment, stuff like that. You were required to, I think it was, be there twice a week. On top of that, your grades had to come in at a certain GPA. It wasn't the school GPA, but it was a workup. Yeah. Right, okay, hey, this week we need to see this grade at this level. Boom, that one there, right? Mm-hmm. So kind of specific in most cases, very specific to that student. Right, and by default, we watched them pick it up. Then they were able to take on more of their classes. Then we were spending time. Then they went from like losing to winning. And the moment they started winning, it was infectious, right? So we started going down there and winning games and stuff like that. I think the first season they had done they lost every game. We came in halfway and won 4 games that season. Then the next season we went 9-1. Them guys, they were showing up every
committed to the program.
Coach, you late? All right, cool. So it was good to get, and then it's infectious.
So that's kind of what we need to do as a city, as a neighborhood, as a town, and as a group of people. We need to become one team. We need to be working with a common goal.
One of the things I'm looking at Sunnyside is for us to be once a month, for us to do something that involves the entire community, right? Whether that's a Zumba class, right, or something that maybe even if we did it outside, especially with everything that's going on, right, recognize and trying to accommodate for that. But it would be cool if we did something like yoga, some sort of fun thing that once a month allows the entire community to come out, mask up, do everything we got to do to follow all the rules. But that gives us a sense of community that we've created. It's not, it's not coming from
above. It's community is never going to be from anything other than the people who are involved in it. Yeah. So much in the same way with like volunteer groups, I've noticed it could always be the same volunteers and continuously, but at some point, I know it's not easy, but if you stay dedicated to it, others start to follow and the group becomes larger.
Well, I mean, even if we said, so I agree with you. I think I also, so here's the thing. I think that that's how you start. Yes. But so give
a start.
Give a case. Josh does the coffee right on Saturdays, right? Yeah. So
Josh Najeen, I think his name is.
Yep. Sorry, Josh Najeen. Sorry, Josh.
I hope that's how you pronounce it.
Josh.
Anyways, he's a great dude.
He does copy. I'm sorry, I don't know the whole story.
Sunnyside Park meetup things. That's where Dane and I met, actually.
Oh, is it?
One, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
He'll
And,
do coffee there, meaning
coffee in the morning.
He'll literally have coffee and some like pastries, and you just kind of show up. There's no real agenda.
just
talk.
talk, enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Show up,
talk
meet
and enjoy yourself.
chat. Yeah.
Who are the people who are most attracted to going there? Who are the people who go there?
Sunnyside neighborhood
The Sunnyside neighborhood.
for now.
It was really the time I went. It was just passersby. Me, Dane, Linda, Josh. My family came with me, and then just kind of random people who strolled by. Right.
It works. It's a good opportunity, isn't it?
And now we just find ways to infuse it with the kind of things that people pay attention to.
Yeah.
The Zumba class will have so many people say, well, what's that? Even if they just stop just because it was a Zumba class.
Now, are you going to be running the Zumba class?
I will not be running the Zumba class.
Come on,
but,
Dave.
but I definitely know that we will have the sponsors that will bring them in.
There we go.
We'll bring us an instructor that's in town. And that
You won't
also,
run it, but you'll take part.
I will take part.
All right. Yeah.
That-
I'll be
that's
right
for
there
sure.
with you then.
That's for sure. I'm cool for that. I definitely
All right,
don't want to run
awesome.
that.
Well, I think it's kind of like, that's the theme of what you've been talking about here is you come together as a group of people, you show support for one another. And if you were to pull off some sort of monthly Zumba program at Sunnyside Park.
Well, maybe not all Zumba, but definitely options.
I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
Oh,
I know what you mean.
Something different, something interactive,
Some
so you
cool
can always pull
group.
an
An activity
different
where
group.
people will come together and we'll do things with each other. I mean, it's kind of where it begins, and it catches fire. It'll just like snowball from there. Really,
knows?
It's the nature of the beast.
Is it Rainbow over there? Maybe Rainbow will give us, I don't know, 10, 15 bikes. We can go do a...
I don't know if they'll give them.
Well, you know what I mean.
I know, I hear
we can
you.
rent them, bring them back. We'll insure.
There we go. All about that.
We could
Yeah,
do it
because
for
you've got the river right there, and you've got the river rides. I
Yes.
mean, right along the whole shoreline of it.
Right.
So you could really get a lot more going involved in there too. A little bit of a departure from that topic, but something I wanted to touch on, and there'd be a top part of the question and a bottom part of the question. What do you find is like one of the most, when you think of a city and you think of the role that, say, like a city councilor can have, what do you think is the most important role a city councilor can have for their constituents, for the people who live in their neighborhoods?
I think a healthy forum that allows constituents to be able to speak freely and not to feel that it definitely has to be an open forum that allows constituents to speak freely, to hear other thoughts, all in the same space. So whether that is a monthly potluck that everyone comes down, everyone's sitting and eating, and they're talking about the issues that they notice within their ward. I think
So it's most importantly, communication
all the way.
all the way.
I-
That's what's probably is.
how
You
can I help
think
you out,
that's
Thomas?
mostly what's missing right now? This disconnect between, say, what the city does and what the people understand the city's doing.
That's,
And I'm not trying to have the finger pointed at the city. It's not like that,
I think that
because it's not unique to Lewiston either. It wouldn't be.
well, I think that I think it's a combination of not just communication, but it for me it just I keep finding myself all the way back to self-advocacy. How do I feel when I'm speaking with people that are in this community that either are my community leaders? Do I feel comfortable being able to talk to my community leaders? Do I feel that my community leaders heard me? Do I feel like they're putting that into action? Is there accountability around that entire aspect? We lack the accountability. So from a leadership standpoint, we lack the accountability. From a local standpoint, we're lacking the space. Right. Again, the coffee piece is so important. Like when I saw that, I was like, yeah, all right, cool, because that is a space where people can come to, and hopefully they get comfortable enough to be able to express themselves in ways that will be forward and will be beneficial to us all. Then those spaces have to be frequented by those who are going to be leaders of our community. Right? If you're not frequenting those things, then how do you know what's being said? How do you know how people feel? How do you give the buck stops here view and vibe as well? Again, one of the biggest things is I used to hate about cell phone sales and Verizon, but then grew to love it, was I sell your phone and you don't like it, you're coming back. Where am I going? Can't go nowhere. So I definitely, in the beginning of doing that was very different. But then I kind of grew to have it felt like a badge, right? Because then they walk in, they're like, hey, yeah, Dane over there, he helped me out. All right, cool. I'm bringing my brothers and my uncles and my cousin and this guy over here. So it came to be a space where you feel proud of, because, at the end of the day, they're walking out feeling great. Right? They're walking out feeling like they've been taken care of in service. In the same way, this job is a service. Right? And for the price, for what you make as a city councilor, this is it's a stipend. It's like communities. It just is, right? And there's no issue with it.
I talked about that too. I wonder.
Not a lot to be made there. We understand that.
It ain't about money. It's definitely. Me and Mark. I remember after the resolution, kind of taking a little offense to some of being in that meeting and hearing the different aspects of it. Right, just there was a lot of. Sophia took a lot of flack, definitely in her 2 years, no question. And some of the ways in which she stood tall and was proud and kept her head held high is to be respected. There were times that I would listen to what was being said, and I'm like, man, no way. There's no way there's no way.
And the ridiculousness of comments, or
the ways in which
imagine.
the ways in which the comments were pointed. It's sometimes in the level or the tactic or intimidation tactic. Sometimes that was put forth.
Yeah.
And
when people are most fearful, they tend to attack about something. When they don't understand it, they tend to attack. It's just almost like a human nature kind of thing. And I'm not excusing it one bit, but generally speaking, from my experience, I know it sounds a bit trite,
these
but it
days,
feels
people really don't have any apprehension when it comes to speaking their mind in an aggressive or a negative way too. Yep. I think that's something else that you might need to be prepared for, Dane, is being someone who has to deal with people who are unreasonable and inappropriate sometimes during these meetings, right? They can be aggressive. They can have an opinion. They can take a hard line stance, and they can really kind of come at you in a hard and inappropriate way. And I think Sophia, I'm sure, probably got a taste of that.
I would never say that I thought politics was tough. My mom asked, first question she asked me is, "You really want to do this?" And I said, well, it's felt like people have been in my business since last year. Last year, especially after that first protest, it was pretty, walking to places and people, there was a lot of, I'd walk into places first off and see both sides of it, right? There were some people that were for it, there were some people that weren't for it, and they were very vocal, very demonstrative. They were expressive. Expressive is probably the best word of all that, but expressive in how they felt. So having been through that piece of it, and for something that means so dear to me, in Black Lives Matter, I think some of that I've been able to get and recognize and understand. The other piece, again, is that my MO is education first, right? So one of the things that I enjoyed from debating in school is that in debate there's a process, right? So you speak, I speak, you speak, I speak, cool. And we get to put our points forward, and you get to answer those points, right? So whenever I'm talking with people, I never want you to feel like you're like anything. I don't want you to feel bad about what you're saying, but I want you to understand the education piece of it. So if I ask you a question and you answer my question, you in turn figure out where you're at with that, right? And if we get to a space of where truth is truth, right? If we get to that space, I mean, either you agree that
I don't know if that's attainable any longer. Truth is truth.
But again, if I can't be like, you need to hear my truth, right? I can't be pointing, right? I need to be someone who is able to understand where you're coming from, right? And ask you questions in the space that you're in. So empathize where you're coming from and figure out how we can get to education, right? Again, this is what I always ask of our teachers, right? Be this where you teach the kids you have, not the ones you want, not the ones you thought you had, not the ones you had last year. You have the ones you have now, right? So let's learn our kids the way we need to learn our kids so that we can better help them in the process across the board. And again, I love our teachers as well, but that's always the onus. You know, I don't want teachers to coddle my son. Right? He's bright. Okay, I want you to push him, right?
Challenge him. You'll benefit him in the long run for it.
But don't see him for what he is, right? A bright young kid, and not what you think he is, which may be troublemaker, right? Possibly, right? Don't let your own biases get in the way of what he is, right? And that involves actually being a part of the process, like actually committing to that process.
That sounds like the best kind of parental advice you could give as well.
Oh,
you know,
it's fun. It's fun. I wish it's they
I sometimes wonder it's Duke too. You're a dad of two, and David's mine. Just one. Do you have one child? Two children.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of these things. There's no playbook, and we don't know. But we all have different things that we need to address with our kids that we feel are, in some ways, some of the most important things to help guide them and make them into stronger people. There aren't. It's tough because we want to be accepting as well too of that they're not going to be like who we are either, and sometimes I go through that kind of battle of I've got to let him be his own person. I've got to let him find his own trials through life too, just as much. Can only hope to prepare. That's all I could expect out of schools too. Is that schools and education systems can only prepare, and then really in the positive manner that we hope that can come of it. So,
I'm there.
Dane, thank you for coming in tonight. We appreciate the conversation.
No, 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 no.